Saint Clare of Assisi is an Italian saint and one of the first followers of Francis of Assisi. She was born in Assisi during the Crusades era, the eldest daughter of Fabrino Schiffi and his wife Ortolona. As a child, Clare was devoted to prayer. Although there is no mention of this in any historical record, it is assumed that Clare was to be married in line with the family tradition. However, as a teen, she heard Francis preach during a Lenten service in the Church of San Giorgio at Assisi and asked him to help her to live after the manner of the Gospel. On the evening of Palm Sunday, 20th March 1212, she left her father's house and, accompanied by her aunt Bainica and another companion, proceeded to the chapel of the Porzinculo to meet Francis. There, her hair was cut and she exchanged her rich gown for the plain robe and veil. Francis placed Clare in the convent of the Benedictine nuns of San Paolo near Bastia. Her father attempted to force her to return home. She clung to the altar of the church and threw aside her veil to show her cropped hair. She resisted any attempt, professing that she would have no other husband but Jesus Christ. In order to provide the greater solitude Clare desired, a few days later, Francis sent her to Sant'Angelo in Panzo, another monastery of the Benedictine nuns, on the flags of Subasio. Clare was soon joined by her sister Caterina, who took the name Agnes. They remained with the Benedictines until a small dwelling was built for them next to the church of San Damiano, which Francis had repaired some years earlier. Other women joined them, and they were known as the Poor Ladies of San Damiano. They lived a simple life of poverty, austerity, and seclusion from the world, according to a rule which Francis gave them as a second order. San Damiano became the center of Clare's new religious order, which was known in her lifetime as the Order of Poor Ladies of San Damiano. San Damiano is traditionally considered the first house of this order. San Damiano emerged as the most important house in the order, and Clare became its undisputed leader. By 1263, just 10 years after Clare's death, the order had become known as the Order of Saint Clare. In 1228, when Gregory IX offered Clare a dispensation from the vow of strict poverty, she replied, "I need to be absolved from my sins, but not from the obligation of following Christ." Unlike the Franciscan friars, whose members moved around the country to preach, Saint Clare's sisters lived in enclosure, since an itinerant life was hardly conceivable at the time for women. Their life consisted of manual labor and prayer. The nuns went barefoot, slept on the ground, ate no meat, and observed almost complete silence. For a short period, the order was directed by Francis himself. Then, in 1216, Clare accepted the role of abbess of Saint Damiano. As abbess, Clare had more authority to lead the order. She defended her order from the attempts of prelates to impose a rule on them that more closely resembled the rule of Saint Benedict than Francis' stricter vows. Clare sought to imitate Francis' virtues and way of life so much so that she was sometimes titled Another Francis. She also played a significant role in encouraging and aiding Francis, whom she saw as a spiritual father figure, and she took care of him during his final illness. After Francis' death, Clare continued to promote the growth of her order, writing letters to the abbesses in other parts of Europe. Clare's Franciscan theology of joyous poverty in imitation of Christ is evident in the rule she wrote for her community in her 4 letters to Agnes of Prague. Separately, in September 1240, a pair of armies attacked the monastery of St. Damino and the town of Assisi. Both targets were successfully defended as Clare prayed to Christ, present in the Blessed Sacrament. In her later years, Clare endured a long period of poor health. She died on 11th August 1253 at the age of 59. On 9th August 1253, 2 days before her death, the papal bull Solent Annuary of Pope Innocent IV confirmed that Clare's rule would serve as the governing rule for Clare's order of poor ladies. At her funeral, Pope Innocent IV insisted the friars perform the office of the Virgin Saints as opposed to the office for the dead. This move by Pope Innocent ensured that the canonization process for Clare would begin shortly after her funeral. Pope Innocent was cautioned by multiple advisors against having the office for the Virgin Saints performed at Clare's funeral. The most vocal of these advisors was Cardinal Renaldus, who would later become Pope Alexander IV, who in 2 years' time would canonize Clare. At Pope Innocent's request, the canonization process for Clare began immediately. While the whole process took 2 years, the examination of Clare's miracles took just 6 days. On 26 September 1255, Pope Alexander IV canonized Clare as Saint Clare of Assisi. Some 600 years later, in 1872, Clare's relics were transferred to a newly constructed shrine in the crypt of Basilica of Saint Clare, where her relics can still be venerated today. Pope Pius XII designated Clare as the patron saint of television in 1958 on the basis that when she was too ill to attend Mass, she had reportedly been able to see and hear it on the wall of her room. Clare was canonized on 26 September 1255 by Pope Alexander IV, and her feast day was immediately inserted in the general Roman calendar for celebration.